Hi, I'm Nick, and in the previous video we made this rough outline of what the terrain is going to look like, or at least our plans for the terrain. Now we're going to make the actual, essentially base level of the terrain. We're going to make the heights, the general topography, and then after that we're going to smooth it out. And then, having smoothed it out so that it looks roughly flowing in a natural way, we're then going to rough it up again and make it look more raw, more real, with bumps and flaws and edges. So anyway, how do we make this base terrain, the base height levels? We're going to use level terrain and slopes. Level terrain to set high points, for instance peaks. So say we decide that the rough peak of the mountain, which we're going to put it at about 700, so then we have space to add rough bumps onto it. We're going to use circles. So we want some mountains behind this range, such that it's understandable why the city is here rather than in a flat place. Because things have to make a historical sense, of course. Now, you may think this looks very boring, but it's going to look very different when it reaches the end. Now, the mountain range. I much prefer to keep this very to use a large brush in this section, because then there's a lot of points to anchor your slopes from. We're going to have to dig in valleys into here, but we'll do that in the final step. Now, the height anchors for the slopes of the river. I'm going to start this delta at 45 because I want a gentle slope on the like a very gentle slope on the delta, so the river splays out. And also, as you may have seen in my first video, if we make the river too steep, it breaks up. So 45, base sea level, default sea level is 40. 45 would be just above that, and when we smooth it out, it's going to essentially, if we just look at this, that will show us where the sea level is. It will roughly turn into a, like, these bits of 45 will go underneath the sea. But we're going to undo that for now. Now here, the top of the delta, we're going to make 55. And the anchor point is going to be there, so then I can slope from here to there, even though there isn't going to be part of the river, at least in theory. Now, the actual, on this note, should have put an anchor point here as well. And where is this going to go up to? Let's say it jumps, so if it jumps 10 there, we want it to be steeper here. 100 seems a safe enough bet, so then we're jumping by 45 in that distance. And we put that there. Actually, let's go 110 just to be safe. that space, continuing on that trend. Ooh. Let's say 170. Going up another 60 to 230 here. And then in that distance, let's go to 330 here. Because this is straight, we can make it a bit steeper. And that isn't actually going to be very steep at all. Now, to put the actual slopes in. Now I find that the brush is very important for this. I prefer to use this brush for making these slopes, just so that we aren't getting completely straight lines on the sides, but we do have a solid enough fill color in the center. And this will be more obvious when we do the steep slopes. If for instance I show you this, that is going to be very it's not going to look as good as if we had used something like this. And then smoothed out with the circle. And that's the other problem with the circle, that you can obviously see the corners of the circle, so when smoothing it's best to use the non-circle as well. So that's going to be how that happens, but the actual river, we're going to make our gentle slopes. And so I right clicked here and then left clicked on each start of each slope. So that's actually an individual slope every time I'm doing. The size of the brush here is also very important, because any subsequent work you're going to do is going to be with a smaller brush than the brush you use right now. So you might want to use a bigger brush now so that you can not make so many brush strokes later when you have to use a tinier one. So yeah, roughly do some just going to do that again. So, now the topography, you can see those gentle slopes. Let's see the base we're using. So, now for the next level of slopes. Smaller brush. We have to be kind of certain what we're doing here with these mountains. Now, having finished the top side of the river, we now are going to do this, but we have this flat plain that we obviously want to put an industrial area in next to the port. So what we're going to do here is we're going to make a little plateau, which won't end as a plateau, but it will. Ooh, now the question is, what height is that? It needs to be higher than there. Yeah. So let's put it at 150. Again, just using a rough outline of this. This isn't going to stay as a flat plateau, but it serves as a useful point. Now, what we're going to do here is we are going to slope from the river to there. And this then brings us to, but first we will actually slope this bit. Now we need to do the same thing for this oxbow. We are going to check what height that is. Oh yes, that was going to be 230, so we need roughly, let's go 250. If we use the actual right tools. I think it's worth going up to 300 here, not 3000. Okay, so we're going to have that, and we are going to need a small brush and bring that out here. Okay, so sloping. Pick up where we left off. So now we've done the complete river. I've sloped all of that, and I had to fiddle a bit with this afterwards because I realized I'd removed the kind of ox bonus of the Oxbow River. Now I need to check the topographic map, just check that it does actually have path of water that makes sense. The water's going to flow down here, it's going to flow there, it's going to flow here, and stay around, and yeah. So, that is that. We're now going to do the same for these mountains. This is better to do very roughly, because you want your mountains to have massive foothills. Well, it could also be good to turn your brush strength down, so you sort of get a cumulative effect rather than a absolute effect. So yeah, after all of that sloping, this is the height map that we have. I will need to fill out this bit a bit, because that is currently under sea level, those flat bits in there, and obviously that's not good because we want it to actually be land. But the way I do smoothing will fix that out anyway. So that is the end of the process, and I'll see you next time when we will go through smoothing and re-roughing.